I just flew in on my broom. I'm Abby with the Bead Place, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a fun, spooky pair of witch's broom earrings. Before we get started, I'd like to remind you to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We put out new video tutorials for fun, creative DIY projects all the time. Please like the video and leave a comment down below. The materials we'll be using for this project are two 1.5-inch cuts of black jewelry tube, two 3-inch cuts of 24 gauge half-hard temperament gold-plated copper wire. We'll also be using two 72-inch cuts of 28 gauge gold or brass plated craft wire and two 1-foot cuts of the same wire that we'll be using for binding wire. We'll have two 1-foot cuts of 26 gauge green wire and a pair of black French hooks. You can find a kit for this project at the link down below. Starting with one of the 3-inch lengths of 24 gauge wire, we're going to do a closed wrap loop just above halfway down the wire. So starting with your chain nose pliers, grab the wire and bend it into a right angle. Switch to your round nose pliers. Hold the round nose pliers so that the noses of the pliers are on top of one another rather than side by side. Grab the part of the wire that's bent over. Push the wire up around the top of the pliers and down. We should have a hook. Now we're going to place that hook back on the bottom nose of the round nose pliers and bring the tail end underneath and straight out to the other side to make a loop. I am going to straighten out my loop just by gently adjusting it. I'm going to grab across the loop with my chain nose pliers and bring the tail end around underneath the loop and start to spiral it down around the post. So once you have about 2 to 3 spirals, you can stop. Use your flush cutter and use that flat side to trim the tail end. Always remember to cover what you're cutting. We can go in with our chain nose pliers to tuck the tail end down if need be. Take our 1.5 inch length of jewelry tube and string it directly onto the remaining wire that we have. And we should have just a little bit of wire coming out of the bottom. With that wire, we'll take our round nose pliers and start to curl it into a loop. So notice how I'm starting a hook. I'm just going to continue curling a tiny little loop at the bottom. Now this is going to get hidden, so it doesn't have to be super pretty. We just want to keep it small. I like to kind of center the loop on the bottom of my post just by grabbing the side and tilting it back a little bit so it's centered. You can kind of smush your loop closed a little bit more if need be. And now we're ready to form the broom. Next, we'll cut 24 3-inch lengths of 28 gauge wire. These will make up the straw parts of our brooms. They don't have to be exactly even in length, but it helps to make it a little bit easier to grab everything while we're working. So again, that's 24 3-inch lengths of 28 gauge craft wire. We'll be taking our 24 cuts of 3-inch 28 gauge wire and we'll be messing them up. So we're going to just bend kinks in them back and forth so that they start to look like a used broom. So I like to bend kinks, kind of separate my stack in half, flip them around the other way, and bend some more kinks. separate them in half, flip half of them around the other way. And doing this ensures that all the kinks go in different places rather than just all being in one spot, which would kind of make a boring looking broom. I also like to kind of stagger them a little bit when I separate them in half. So instead of putting them back together like this, I'll put one stack a little bit higher than the next when I go to crinkle them. So just bend, jagged bends into them. And then what we're gonna do is take just a few out at a time and just almost straighten them. We don't want to get all of the kinks out, but we just want to get them so that they're a little bit more uniform. Untangle them if they are tangled, and now we're ready to form our broom. So our next step is to surround our broomstick with our broom straw. So you want to make sure that the straw is almost all the same length, so all the same height in the same position around the broom. And we're going to want to entirely surround the broomstick with the center of our straw being where the end of our broomstick is. We're going to take 1 foot of our 28 gauge wire to use as a binding wire. And what I like to do is take the end of the wire through the straw so that it can also go through the loop. You can just see that loop that we made at the bottom of the broomstick. So string that through until you have about half of it on one side and half of it on the other. Take 1/2 of the binding wire and start to bind right above the loop at the bottom of our jewelry tube. You want to make sure that you are binding around the jewelry tube itself rather than the sticks below the jewelry tube, because we need that loop at the bottom of the jewelry tube to disappear into the bottom of our broom. So make sure to wrap really tight. This is what's anchoring all these sticks to the broom. So wrap until you have about 1.5 inches left, and then this 1.5 inches is going to actually turn into one of the pieces of straw at the bottom of our broom. So now what we're going to do is take the top pieces of straw and we will start to pull them down one by one evenly over that lash that we've made. If you need to make these pieces a little bit longer, it's easy enough to just slightly pull them up and then bring them down so that the length matches the length of the straw beneath it. So this isn't the quickest project if you want it to look uniform, but it's a witch's broom for Halloween, so it's supposed to look a little bit messy. Just make sure that you're evenly spreading them apart as best you can and work all the way around the broom. If there are any areas that look a bit sparse, just push some of the wires around in order to fill in any of the areas that are looking empty and to spread out any of the areas that look a little bit too clumped together. So now what we'll do is take the remaining piece of binding wire and we will start to bind right beneath that loop that's at the bottom of our jewelry tube. So this is going to be the binding right at the top of our broom, and we're actually going to just tightly coil it around. Doesn't have to be pristine because this is going to be covered by our colored wire, but this is just what's going to hold everything together. So now this tail end here, this 1.5 inches that we're going to have left over, is going to form another piece of straw for our broom. what I like to do is kind of fluff my broom a little bit. So I separate all the little broom stick spindles, my straw, and I just fluff it out. And I correct any major kinks. I add in kinks where the wire's a little bit too straight. But if you just kind of separate all of the little spindles and arrange them to where you think they need to go, it'll create a fluffier looking broom. And then you can just kind of push them all back down into broom shape. Next, we'll be adding a pop of color to our brooms by adding 26 gauge wire in green. So this is 1 foot of 26 gauge wire. You can use the whole foot if you'd like. I'm not going to use the whole thing. I'm just gonna kind of wire wrap it around until I have covered the gold lash. You can do this as messy or as clean as you'd like. You know, it's a witch's broom, so you can get a little crazy with it. So I'm just coiling it around. You don't have to tuck the first end in because it's a little stiffer. It'll stay on its own. But with this back end here, what we're gonna do is actually spread the broom open and hide the end kind of in the middle. So spread the spindles of the broom and pull it through to the back side, kind of pull it up with your pliers, then trim the tail end, and then fluff your broom out again so that it looks good. So repeat these steps to create another broom, and then you can give your brooms a haircut so they match. If you want them to match, make them as neat or messy as you'd like. And then what I like to do is put a little bit of a bend into the broomstick itself. Make sure that your bends match. So what I usually do is I'll bend one and then I'll turn the other one around and bend it the same way so that they match. But you're making sure that your wrapped loop is the same when they're flipped opposite. So the front of your wrap loop is going to be facing the same direction and your bends are opposite when you wear it. So next what we'll do is take our French ear wire and open it just like you would a jump ring. So take your chain nose pliers, open the loop, string the top of your broomstick into it and close it. And we'll do the same thing with the other ear wire. And you have some beautiful witch's broom earrings. Thanks so much for joining us today to make these spooky witch's broom earrings. If you enjoyed watching this video, please give us a big thumbs up. It really helps our channel out. If you have any questions or if you'd just like to say hi, leave a comment down below. We'd love reading your comments. If you would like to see more of these videos, please subscribe. We put out new videos all the time. All the materials we use today can be found individually or in a kit. The links will be in the description below. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and on Pinterest. And thanks for watching.